lounging, son.
So welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan, and once again, I have another dope indie creator with me to talk comics. Not only does he do his own book, Guano Guy, which is hilarious, by the way. You got a Kickstarter running right now. We'll talk about that. But we are also going to talk about a little project called Image Grand Disaster. Anybody that has been watching along with all of these interviews, I've talked to many creators that have been a part of the project, both the disaster side, both the grand design side. And you can get, I think there's still some copies left at the shop I work at as of this recording. That may not be the case once this video goes live. I'm not sure, but welcome, Mark. It's a pleasure to have you, dude.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I have a very long intro. I just realized I just said a lot of shit. So yeah, dude, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. We tried to do this like this is a third time. So I'm glad we were able to lock it down. We're talking a couple days before it's going to drop digitally for everybody to pick it up. And the interview will post out the day after. So that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect that we lined it up this way. So let's talk about you real quick before we get into disaster, because I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about that. I want to hear your story. How did your love of comics start? When did you decide you wanted to start creating comics yourself?
Yeah, the love of comics started as a little kid, going into bookstores while my parents would be like at the grocery store or whatnot, and that's boring. So I'd go in the bookstores and sit there and peruse. You know, I was really into fantasy novels, so I was always thumbing through those and then getting one. And then found comic books, which really also helped spark my reading too. Those are the two big things that got me reading, because textbooks sure weren't doing it. So I got on Disney Comics and Richie Rich, Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Oh, the Harvey comics. Yeah. I remember those. Okay.
Yeah, and they were a lot of fun. Those the Harvey and the Disney comics. There was a lot of little short stories, and there's very cute characters, and there's still action, but it's very cartoony.
Right. And
just fun little adventures. So I really dug those. And then I knew Batman from the 60s TV show and the Super Friends. Mm-hmm. So that's the Batman I knew. And then I saw Batman 404 on the shelf on like the little rack in the bookstore. I was like, ooh, Batman. Because I only owned it for 15 minutes before my sister saw, I'm like just thumbing through it going, why isn't he wearing his costume? Why is he driving a regular car? And he just tried to save that woman. Why did she and her friends attack him? This is weird. I don't understand what's going on here. And then my sister's like, Mom, it says prostitute. Well, that's gone.
Oh, damn it, dude. So your sister, why'd she do this? Dang, dude. She cock blocked you on the fucking Frank Miller Batman comic, dude.
Yeah. It was years later that I was thumbing through Batman back issues because I'd gotten back into them. I mean, I was always into Batman, but was finally old enough that I was just getting comics on my own and hiding them if I had to. And I ran across that cover and it just clicked like that, the memory. And so I got that series and finally read it. And I'd read The Dark Knight Returns. So those were some, really big ones. And it's funny, whenever I'd read something, I would think it was old. Like when I read The Dark Knight Returns, I thought it must be old. It had to have happened before me, but no, it was happening right then. In fact, I was at a summer camp and one of the counselors let me borrow it. That's how I read it. So that was cool.
Yeah, it's a cool story, dude. I mean, when did you decide though that you wanted to create these yourself? I mean, I think a lot of us, right, as fans, we're like, oh, that'd be cool to make our own comics. Like I myself would love to write. I just, for whatever reason, don't do it. Like there's no real reason other than me procrastinating, saying, oh, I'll do it another time. I got this. I'm working 2 jobs. Oh, I got the YouTube channel. I can't not do that. And so I have to, so it's.
Yeah. There's only so much you can do. Right.
Right. So I'm curious, what made you, what sparked the decision to I want to do this, and then take us to when you actually first did your first published comic?
Well, it's kind of out of tragedy. I was doing some really good stuff in the military. I was supposed to go into special forces, actually. Had passed the tryouts and was training for it. And then my back went out and I tried to pare back, went back to college, was going to try to be an officer instead, but it was still just too much on my body. post the injury. And I ended up going to school I ended up switching over and doing graphic design training and getting back into art. And during that, it's just like kind of I don't know, the switch clicked again. And I just started getting real creative, and I was writing tons of ideas and just was constantly coming up with comic book ideas. Then from the graphic design training, worked my way into making games. So I did a game internship with Alderac, and then I did a freelance project for Chaosium, and then I got hired on the Fantasy Flight games. And I worked there for a little over a year before I got let go for, I don't know, but I just did. But while I was there, I'm working on games, I'm continuing to do creative stuff. And I then caught on to webcomics. Just like while I was at work on break, I caught on to webcomics and started reading them daily. And I was like, yeah, I got to do that. There was just the barrier to entry, like having to get that approval to start doing something. I had all these ideas. I was already writing them. Mm-hmm. I put up got a message up on a board, found a good artist who shared my like silly humor and wanting to do a fun spoof book. And we worked on it for half a year and then started putting up the pages and ended up doing it for like a year. And that really got it going. Just learned a lot through doing the webcomic, and then did a first print issue, issue number 1 after doing the webcomic, but with a different artist because the other guy had to move on. And then after that, it kind of fell off for a few years because that artist also then left, and I shopped it around to companies and whatnot. But Guano Guy is not an easy, it's not the like slam dunk sale where companies. I often would meet someone at a company that would be like, oh yeah, I really dig this, I got to show it to higher up. And then from higher up, it'd be like, yeah, no, we don't think we can move enough of that. So I just got really motivated. I'd been talking about my book for a few years while that was going on. And I hit a day where I was like, I must either really, really get serious about this or let it go. So I started printing out all that material I had, hitting a convention a month, doing store signings, and just I haven't stopped since. So, and
nice,
luckily I got another artist who's been really committed, and we're making our 4th issue together. So issue number 4 is our 4th issue together.
What is the working relationship now with this current artist? Is there more of a synergy between you two now than let's say the past 2 artists that you worked with?
The first artist, we had a really good connection. Yeah. And we worked really well. Like when we would get together once a week and just discuss ideas, and it was very simpatico. We had similar humor, and so what you're seeing on the page was us together, and it was just really life that caused him to move on. He had when I met him, he was freelancing, and so this was it was another gig, which was good, and he was really enjoying it. But then he got like 2 serious jobs, and he had kids, and it wasn't enough time in the day, and I couldn't pay enough to, make it valuable for his time. So he had to move on. It's just how it was. The current artist lives over in Sweden, delivers mail. Yeah. We met via social media and we read each other's comics. He had a comic already too, but they had similar humor. So it was really cool that he came on, did some short stories, and then wanted to be the artist. So that was very fortunate. And we discuss ideas. It's a lot of fun writing where I'll have an idea, but then when I share it with them, like it totally clicks with them, and then they're adding to it, and we're discussing it back and forth, and really getting to something we both are super excited about.
So I just want to know, like, how did you go from the day job that you had, right, and turn that into like writing a script? Because I know that even people in film or that write prose, like it's a different thing writing a script for somebody else to interpret visually. So what was that like?
I mean, it was a learning process. I, as a kid around 8 or 9, wrote and drew a couple of little comics as a kid about a dog being a police officer, because I really like dogs. So he was driving the car and arresting the criminals himself. So I did that, and then I went in and I started writing short stories as a kid. And in high school, I switched over and started writing poetry. And then after high school, I started playing the drums, got in a band, started writing lyrics to make songs. So I feel like I could write anything. It just takes a little bit of time to get into, like, get down how that particular writing concept works. So when I started with comics, I mean, the first script is awful, and I held on to it. So I can always look back and see like how terrible it was, but it was just a process of learning it. I'd write and kind of see what worked with the artist and what didn't. The other thing I would do is pick up, because luckily these are out there more now, but buy those like director cuts of comics where the writer has their script in it, and you can read and see their styling and how they talk to the artist. I will say that one of the biggest ones, and it was with the least amount of information, it was like just hearing the idea. It's Alan Moore's, like, when you're writing a comic, you're writing a love letter to the artist. And I like heard that, it was like totally clicked. I don't need to write this so that the only reader is this one person. So sometimes I'm going to write, dude, I'm really excited about this scene. We need to open up on, and that'll be the language I'll use. Like, I'm talking to that person, and that's it. You know, that's different from, of course, the script, the dialogue stuff, and the narration. But I'm just writing to the illustrator, like what I'm excited about, what we're trying to achieve, like what effect we need. And I've gotten much further away from, because initially I kind of thought I was supposed to tell them like camera angles and poses, and I've gotten away from that. Like, I just need to tell you the concept, the energy, but how you want to portray that as the artist, go for it. I don't need to be micromanaging that. That's not helpful. Another thing that I do, if anybody wants to grab this technique, but I like to write where I'll give them a paragraph that very, just the meat and potatoes of what they need to give me story-wise what I need. But then underneath, I'll make a list of just ideas, things that could be there or not if they want to. And it just options, things they could put in there. And I found that, because there's no restriction, none of it has to be there, but I've found that most of it ends up there, because it's all just like, hey, dude, if you want to do this, this would be cool, and maybe this is there, or something along those lines, or just read this list and see what it makes you think. So I like doing that a lot, just throwing in a bunch of like options, just cool stuff that could be there or not if you want to. And I found that works pretty good. Looser writing, it also just depends on the artist and how well we know each other. When I worked on Disaster, my 5-page story that was my initial contribution had 5 different artists. So that one, definitely I wrote panel by panel, and was shocked at how much, like, you get to the end of this page and then like you get the next page, you almost don't know it's a different artist. Like, it all flowed, but it was written panel by panel. When I'm working with Alexander, the artist on Guano Guy, it's almost always like a paragraph per page. It's not broken down like he wants to do that. So I just tell him what I need. And sometimes I'll write like, here's 3 pages, like however you want to lay this out and break it down. Here's what I need to happen from here to here. 3, you figure it out in 3 pages.
Yeah,
so
dude, that's super helpful, because like I've been racking my brain, like, how do I even like start? Like, where do I start? Because like I have visually in my head like what I kind of would think would be cool to see, right? But like to convey that. So super helpful what you just shared. So I really appreciate that. On a personal note, I mean, I'm sure other people will find that helpful also, but like you were making my mind work. That's why like I was looking around.
Yeah, and when you're writing it, you also want to divorce yourself from the very specific image that you have. Like as long as it is telling the story, it needs to be the artist's best version of that idea, of that concept, not the exact idea that you were envisioning. The more I've let that go, that really helps too with the relationship. And also the artist idea will often be the better idea, is working off of the concept.
So I want to talk about Guano Guy. First, I want to get into that. I want to hear the idea behind the book. And I mean, you're on the 4th issue, another Kickstarter. Pretty sure it's already backed, right? Last I checked, I think it was either close or
it's close. Yeah, we got a couple hundred to go.
Okay, so I mean, I'm very stoked. I mean, I think I was like, I reached out to you because I wanted to read more of Guano Guy before we talked, but then I was like, you know what? we could always chat again. I don't need to make this all about Guano Guy. We'll talk about both. And then also, instead of me sending you the money for the books that you already have, I could fund that into the Kickstarter, which kind of like pushes the numbers up on there. So I figured that would kind of be a little bit more helpful.
Yeah.
But, so I want to hear story behind Guano Guy. What it's like doing a Kickstarter for people that may have done it and maybe weren't successful, and just a little bit about your experience with the Kickstarter. What's going on with it right now?
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. I like that it exists. It gives another platform, another way for creators to get their materials out, where it's going to be seen by a larger audience. A nice thing about it is that everybody who follows somebody on Kickstarter, whenever they back something, everyone who follows them then sees what they backed, which is very useful, because there's a number of Kickstarters that I've contributed to for stuff I really, really wanted that I would not have heard about because I just wasn't searching at that time. But somebody that I follow backed that one, and like, ooh, they backed what? Oh, yeah, I got to get in on that. So that really helps. So if there's someone on there that like you have a simpatico interest where they tend to like things you like, it's smart to follow them because they're going to find stuff and then you can get in on it. And it's also, it helps that it's a trusted platform. That is valuable versus like, I'm just putting up my own thing somewhere. Unless somebody personally knows me, they're going to definitely have their doubts, versus it being on a larger platform that there's a little bit more of an impression or a feeling like this is for real.
For everybody listening, watching that isn't familiar with Guano Guy, right? That hasn't picked it up, hasn't backed it yet. What is something that you would like to share with them about the project and kind of why they should support the project?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the big thing is I really don't think there's a lot of comic books that are really funny.
That's true. That's true.
It's challenging. And there's a reason why there's so many superhero comic books or so many sci-fi that delivers easier. There's more people that do that well. And comedy, it's tougher. There's there's people that come from science, well, somewhat sci-fi backgrounds, but there's not a lot of people who come from a comedy background that are actually making a comic. Versus like I do stand up, or I did do stand up, and I'm going to be getting back into it pretty soon. And I grew up just watching sitcoms almost nonstop. It was one of my favorite things to watch. So it really made sense to do
same here. I love
superhero and in comedy. That's something I watched all the time. So like I very much think of the Guano Guy. It's like Seinfeld with superpowers. It's like if Seinfeld was an animated show on Cartoon Network, but they had some superpowers, but they were still those same old jerks just doing stupid stuff. Like these are not people you should hang out with. And then they made a comic book of that show. Like that's what this comic is. It's a lot of ridiculous ideas. And having done stand-up, I oftentimes will see something and my perspective on it or my thought process on it is pretty unique, or like where I'll go with it is going to be really different. Mr. Marvelous Man, one of the characters, putting down watching sports because he's like, why would I watch someone else's accomplishments? I could be out there doing something, rather than watching this guy win.
Yeah, I mean, your comic book is hilarious. And like you said, there is not a lot of comic books that are funny, really. I mean, a lot of and I would say a lot of Marvel and DC sometimes take themselves too seriously. Like there are some like gems that they'll throw out every once in a while, like Beta Ray Bill, right now by Daniel Warren Johnson is a standout to me. Joelle Jones her Wonder Girl book just came out this week and it was absolutely breathtaking. But it's nice to get something fresh and different, and a book like yours is not something I'm going to see every day. So it stands out and I really enjoyed it. And I'm super stoked to be able to read the rest of the books as they come out.
So for people that hear this, if you go to the Guano Guy Kickstarter, issue number 1, you can download it. So you can go ahead and read it and see if the humor, if you enjoy it. And then if you do, then help me out. Help me make more of these things.
Oh yeah, dude. And I will drop the link to the Kickstarter down below in the comments. So if you're listening on or watching whatever platform you're on, it's going to be down there below. All you have to do is click the link and it'll take you right to the Kickstarter to back this dope fucking project. Let's talk Grand Disaster.
All
This
right.
book is a part of, it's a flip book with Image Grand
Mhm.
Design. And while Image Grand Design ties everything together in a cohesive type of narrative in history, continuity, Image Grand Disaster fucking takes that concept. It's absolutely destroyed. And you guys do fucking crazy shit on this side. To my knowledge, I mean, Rocco Jerome told me that you really helped kind of oversee that part of the book, and you kind of stepped in and helped kind of oversee that. Is that correct?
I know some things and some things I don't know. Greg originally was the guy who took this on, and he had a lot of ideas, a ton of plot written out that was really cool, and he brought in a lot of artists getting pieces done. And then there was a lot of other people who were coming in with their own stories, some of which tie into the bigger narrative and some stand on their own. And my role, I came in helping create and get this done after one of the other editors, producers had to drop out for family reasons. So I came in, I had my own story that I had already submitted. And then I started on my own, started working with people where I was doing some, editing, like just letting them kick their ideas back and forth with me, and then was lettering their stories. And it grew from there. There was a story where it was already written, but it hadn't been scripted. So I stepped in and scripted and lettered it. And then there was another one where after I came on as editor, a whole bunch of the plots were passed on to me. So I finished writing them out and working with the artist to get those stories done, and then scripted and lettered them, which was a lot of where I got to get creative and have fun. Like there was a Mr. Monster story that Tony Farrow was working on, and I was just like, oh, you got to let me in on this. Like, please, you got to let me work on this. And he had originally planned to write and letter it himself, but he let me do it. So I went back, I pulled my Mr. Monster comics out and was reading through them so I could get into that character's voice, and wrote out like all his lines, like how he actually sounds. And then now Monster Man, I didn't know as well. So I really had to go back and read his stuff. And I wrote him up a whole bunch of lines and then lettered that one. So that was kind of neat. Like the story was already there. So I just had to script on top. Lady Tron was another one where I went back and read her issues so that I could get into her voice, get into like that kind of dirty, sarcastic pain in the ass that she is, get it right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that both sides of this book, man, the Grand Design and the Grand Disaster, it is such a unique project, and it's just full of so many dope creatives that attach themselves to this book. And I can't imagine the work done behind the scenes. I mean, I'm friends with Eli, so I know the production side of it, getting this thing published, getting this thing shipped, and all of that has been a tremendous amount of work. Rocco Jerome, kind of editing and overseeing the Grand Design side. Like I hear it. Like it sounds like a tremendous amount of work, and everything was all done. And I've said this to everybody, for the love of comics and their passion for the medium. Like nobody's made a dime from this book, and that's important for people to know that when you go and support these digital versions of the book, you are donating to Hero Initiative. That's where your money's going. The initial money to get those like few printed copies was all to go into the production of those books. None of the money saw anybody's wallets. Just everybody needs to know that. I want them to know that off the top. And I think it's amazing what you guys did. I love this book, dude. Like I want to give it a little bit of time before I read it again, because it's still fresh in my mind, and I want to step away, but I'm so anxious to jump back into it.
Wait till the digital comes out, because
let's talk about that, because before we started recording, you told me that there's more stuff in the digital version of Disaster than was printed in this copy that I have. So now I'm going to have to go do that, and I'm going to have to go print myself a copy somehow, which I'm sure somebody in the group will steer me towards somewhere I can print it. But talk to me about that. Why is there more in this version than there is in the print?
So it started with there was a page that when the book came out and printed, I'm going through it, and in my mind is going, something's wrong. I know there's this thing that I saw, and I was digging through files, and I finally find something about it. And I asked Misi, I'm like, Misi, did you do a page? And he's like, yeah, I did. And I'm like, okay, you got to send me that. That's going in the digital. He had this gorgeous page. It was totally finished. And then Jerome reaches after me, and he's like, dude, 3 of my pages aren't in this. And I'm like, what? I've never seen these pages. I searched all through all the files that I had never seen them. So he actually had a 10-pager that was missing the first 3 pages. So there was like the second part of his story was in there, a 7-page. So he sent me those. So that's in there. So that's 4 right off the bat. Then it turned out we had like 2-3 pinups that didn't get used. So yeah, those are going in. And then I just started working with where there were some things that didn't get done in time. And so I started reaching out to people, like, going back to all the people that worked on the project, going to Christian, going to Tony, reached back out to John, and it was just like, guys, here's some stuff. We could get this done. Can you help? So I, set scripts, or in some cases there was already a layout. So we got those done. And then as I was reading, I kept reading through this plot, and I'm like, there's a hole. I got to fix this. Or at least I got to get the process on fixing it going. So it's like one of the characters, he disappears in the book. He doesn't have a piece in the finale. That doesn't gel. And there's these other guys, if you know how design ends, and that does play in,
Yeah.
There's a beatdown at the end of design, and that beatdown has to be kind of like, it's almost like refried beans. We got to hit it again.
Oh,
so there was some stuff missing. So like I wrote up another page, and then reached out to Sam, like, hey, is any chance you can get this done? And then there was another guy who was just really a big fan and missed out, and there was another piece that was needed. So we got that done. And then a couple more like pinups and extras. And there was a lot of art extras too, cool stuff where it was like their workups to the page that could go in there. Sam has one where it's like the story that's in there, he has like a really cute cartoony version of it that was his initial, like, just kind of building up the idea. And so not only is there like a good, I think, 8 extra pages of story material, and then another 4 or 5 pinups. Then on top of that, you got the cool artist extras. We didn't have room for bios when we originally did it. We had to cut, there was just no space for that because of the story material. So that's why it's actually coming out at 216 versus there was 160 when it, came out in this. So
damn. Okay. That's a substantial amount more. So yeah, I'll be buying that. So I can.
I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll go through, and a lot of it's going to be what you saw before, but it's going to sort of all connect just a little better than it did. There was time to smooth out some edges.
All right, cool, man. Well, I'm definitely stoked to check that out, because, like I said, I'm already ready to revisit this. Now this gives me a reason to revisit the digital version, and I'll figure out a way to print it. So I've been asking everybody that's been a part of the project, I hear so many stories about how this saved them during, a really dark year, gave them, somewhere to focus their energy on in a positive way. I would love to hear what your experience was like on the project. You did a lot more than just, more than just writing or lettering. Like, you did a lot, right, in this project and helped bring it to life. So I just want to hear your take on what it was like to be a part of this amazing project in this amazing group of people and cartoonists and creatives and fans, because the Ringside Seats group is unlike any other group I've ever been a part of.
Oh yeah. That's so cool. I found it because of the Wizard videos. Yep. And was watching those, and then continued to follow along. And then I'm a Facebook guy. I like connect. That's where I like connecting with people through groups on there. And came across the Kayfabe group, befriended that, got to know Eli a little bit. And I caught on to this whole thing in like the 11th hour. Design was already off and running. And then disaster, literally, I caught Greg's like, hey guys, 11 p.m.'s cutoff for submitting stories. And I'm like, that's 2 hours from now. Boom.
Yeah.
I banged out a 5-page outline real fast in an hour, dropped it in, and got a message back like, you can do this in 5 pages? You can wipe out the whole extreme universe in 5 pages. Yes, I can. I got this because I was coming from the web comic where I was used to doing stories in 4 pages, so no problem. So initially I did that, and like I've mentioned before, I just the role expanded to wanting to do more stuff with more people's material because I've been doing comics for a while now, but working on my own, and there's a certain rhythm and comfort level. And for me, this project was just a huge chance to expand my skills working in a variety of roles. It was maybe not the first, but it was definitely the second, third, and fourth time where somebody's already done a story and I'm going in scripting after the fact. And that really gave me a chance to concentrate purely on the dialogue, which is nice. I think that's one of my stronger suits because of the comic book where the dialogue really is pretty key. Helping out a bit on editing. It helped my lettering skills a ton because I'm used to lettering mine, but each story, particularly when all I did was letter, that was my whole chance to get creative, and do something unique or different for each of the stories was to work with the lettering. So I had a lot of fun with that. Even I ended up lettering the last few stories I did with my left arm because I'd had to have surgery on my right arm, so I had to switch arms, which was interesting. It's like, oh, now I'm drawing with my left. Let's see how this goes.
Well, I mean, I think the book came out great. I think you guys, all of you, the talent that is in this book is it's astounding.
Yeah.
You guys did a great job, and I mean, I'm just excited to see what else comes out of the group. I'm going to be a part of stuff if possible. I mean, this stuff's exciting, man. It's my favorite project of the year so far. So, and I think it's going to be hard for somebody to top the level of excitement and anticipation that I had for this book. I don't even know if it's possible. I really don't, because I really, really love the book. And I think everybody, if you want to get a digital copy, I know that I said that we have them at my shop, the physical, but that's going to be gone. Got to get those extra pages to the disaster. So I'm going to drop the link for that down below. It will already be live, available to purchase. So make sure you guys hit that link below and go purchase it. It's going to a good cause, Hero Initiative. And it's a dope.
And it's going to be
book.
Incredible.
Yeah. Dope fucking book. So,
so good.
Yeah.
So many great artists.
Yeah. So I want to ask, before we, wrap this up, do you got anything else cooking up? Anything else in the works that you could talk about, tease a little bit?
Yeah, the groups continued. So there's a couple of different projects. There's another image short stories book that we're doing, another fan book. And then there's an indie book that we're doing that's going to be our own characters, but connecting into a bigger story narrative, but with not a lot of restrictions. So that one's going to be pretty fun. So 2 more Kayfabe projects coming together. And then this year, I love Guano Guy and I'm going to keep going with it, but I've got 2 other comic projects I've been germinating on for quite a while. One being a horror revenge flick and the other one being like a spy story, but in a fantasy world, in a sword and sorcery world. So I got to get on one of those, got to get going. I've been doing a lot of behind the scenes work on them. It's time to get one of those off the ground and expand because it's great doing comedy, but I need to write something.
Yeah, you want to flex those other muscles, man. I totally get it. And I definitely am excited to see whatever you got cooking up. I can't wait to get my Guano Guy in the mail. All those issues, physical form, because I told you, I can't do. You offered me to send the PDFs, and I was like, I'll wait. No. I'll just wait. It's just not the same.
To hold it. Yeah,
it's just not the same for me. Like I'm really old school in that sense, So
yeah. And for the folks listening, even though I'm putting out issue 4, it's actually the 8th issue of Guano Guy.
Yeah, and you guys can, that's another thing is that all the issues are available in a specific tier. You can get all of them in print as well. So it's not just issue 4 that you can get on the Kickstarter. You can get every issue to get caught up. So again, go back that Kickstarter, go buy Image Grand Disaster, buy Image Grand Design, all these dope projects. Make sure you do it. And also, where can we find you online so that everybody listening and watching can find you online as well.
Yeah, on Facebook, Mark Darden, or if you just want to follow the project, the Guano Guy, he's got his own Facebook page. We're always posting what's going on with him. So either one of those, Mark Darden or the Guano Guy, Facebook. That's the best spot. That's where I'm the most in touch.
Awesome, dude. Well, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me. It's been a blast, and we'll definitely do another one of these in the future. Talk some more Guano Guy, talk whatever other projects you got in the works.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ryan.